Hi everyone, so it is the 14th of August. I have not made a video in a while for you guys. I've been kind of out of the habit of making videos for a little bit. I'm sorry about that. I will be getting back into it now. This is the first in, a series of good videos. Quick update on the book. The book is almost finished. So I am nearing completion of my gigantic book of fitness myths. It is over 400 pages, I believe now, or over 300 pages. I don't know. It's huge, and I've got multiple documents because when you get to a certain document size, Google Docs starts screwing up. So it's huge. It's so close to being done. I thought it was going to be done like 2 weeks ago. Got a little bit delayed, but I should honestly be able to knock out pretty much everything else in the next couple days. Hopefully, fingers crossed. So we'll see how it turns out. But the topic today is called, "Is Butter a Carb?" And this is from the classic Mean Girls, where, she goes like, "Oh, is butter a carb?" And then she goes, "Yes." So, this is kind of a question, this isn't necessarily a fitness myth, but it is often a thing about how people think and talk about nutrition. So they'll say, "Oh, is X a carb? Is Y a fat? Is Z a protein?" And the problem is that so many foods are not just one thing. They're multiple things. The vast majority of the foods that we eat are not just, it's not just a carb. It's not just a protein. It's not just a fat. So, for example, most of your proteins will have some amount of fat in them too because it's meat and it comes along with fat. Milk has a pretty good amount of all three, fats, proteins, and carbs. You've got a lot of your carb sources, your grains, your rice, stuff like that, have protein in them as well. So they do contain a decent amount of protein. Beans have, proteins, fats, carbs. So it's kind of silly to ask, people say, "Oh, rice is a carb." Well, they say that because it's predominantly made of carbohydrate, but there's still protein in there too. You can't ignore that fact. And so that can be a huge problem for people if they're ignoring those trace amounts of other nutrients in their foods. So, what someone pointed out is, if you have, protein needs in general are not as high as a lot of people think. Usually about 0.8 grams per pound of body weight per day is enough for most people, which is a lot less than the 1 to 2 grams of protein per pound of body weight per day that is recommended by a lot of bodybuilders and, supplement providers and so on. Now, someone pointed out, if all of your carbohydrates in your diet came from rice, you're still getting a huge amount of protein in from that. And so you really wouldn't need that much meat to make up the difference, particularly if you're in a bulk where you've got, a lot of calories and you're eating a lot of carbs. So, I just recommend to people, if you are trying to track your diet, if you're trying to increase your protein intake, if you're trying to lose weight, if you're trying to gain weight, whatever you're doing with your diet, it's, number one, it's super important to track what you're doing, and that's the big thing, is a lot of people don't track their diets. They they try to intuitive eat without really paying attention to what's really going on, and then they don't see results because they're not really actually paying attention. You don't have to get super deep into it and write down all your macros and measure out your exact portions and everything like that, but you should actually pay attention to the foods that you're eating and get a rough idea of the portion sizes, how many calories you're getting out of it, what macronutrients you're getting out of it, so on. And so you should pay attention to nutrition labels. And so if you do, you'll discover that a lot of foods are, again, not just one kind of macronutrient. They contain a lot of, they contain multiple kinds of macronutrients, and it's very easy to, again, ignore the non-predominant ones and, just kind of not realize where that's screwing up your diet. A really good example is skim milk. People say to me all the time, I don't know where people got this idea, but they say skim milk is a carb. And if you look at whole milk, a lot of the calories come from fat. Most of the calories come from fat. Now, it still has a good amount of protein and a good amount of carbohydrate in it. Now, when you take skim milk, you take out all the fat, So none of the calories are coming from fat, and yeah, at that point, carbs are providing the most energy simply because there's more of them than protein. But it's still, you know, you're still getting a lot of protein. It's still not 50-50, but, you know, it's a relatively decent amount of protein that you're getting in your skim milk. So, you know, am I going to call that a carb? Well, of course not. It's a carb and a protein. Why would you think of that as just a carb? It's the exact same thing with whole milk, you know. People might be like, oh, well, that's a fat because it's just, you know, you get most of the energy from fat. Well, that's not what it is. It's a fat and it's a carb and it's a protein. It's all three. So, you know, don't ask if something, you know, don't ask, oh, is that a carb? You know, ask what macronutrients it's made out of. What, you know, like, what does it have in it? Actually look at the nutrition label. And, you know, that way you'll get a much better picture of things. You're not going to just ignore all those little things that you're, you know, that are contributing to your success or failure and you're just not paying attention to. Again, you don't have to get super, you don't have to do every single little thing. You don't have to get super keyed into it, but at least pay attention. You know, have an idea of what you're doing. Try and pay some amount of attention. Anyway, so that is our video for today. As always, like, comment, share, tell me what you want to see in the future, and I will talk to you guys next time. Good night.